Hello and welcome to Pandora Astrology's monthly horoscope for Libra. I'm Julia Mijas.
And I'm Jamie Kale Miller. Hey, Libra. I'm going to tell you about themes around money and career this month. Lots going on because there's plenty of activity in your 10th house of career, especially as the month begins. And then a lot of that activity then shifts on over into your 11th house, which is a house of networking as well as a social house. And Julia will tell you more about relationships in that in a little bit. But right now, I want to focus on the business aspects of this. So, in the 10th house, in your 10th house, well, in your 6th house, which is the house of the job, and I want to distinguish here because the 10th house is the house of the career, which has a long-term arc, whereas the 6th house is the arena of the job and how effective you are in it and the job environment that you're in. So, a couple of interesting things going on in your 6th house that form a backdrop to career activities this month. One is that Neptune stations retrograde on July 2nd, and that means that you're entering into a couple of months where you may feel more confusion, more mystery around your job. It may be that something in the environment, somebody's keeping a secret or behaving in ways that you find confusing, or you don't quite know what's going on. And so beware of entering into a state of delusion and being fooled by something that you don't exactly know what it is yet. And that'll probably be revealed in the next couple of months. And in the meanwhile, just, drift, drift. So Saturn is recently turned retrograde and is traveling through your 6th house as well. Saturn makes us work at whatever we get in the house that it's going through, and it will also bestow upon us skills and expertise for doing that work. So Saturn is going to make your workplace a little bit more difficult for you to be in, for you to participate in. But if you do that work, you will absolutely get rewarded, and it's work that is well worth doing. And I know that directly contradicts what I just said about Neptune, and darn it, that's just how it is in life. Quite often we're going through two periods that would seem to be completely opposite, and we're going through them simultaneously. And that's why life is so complicated and humans are so complicated. So as Saturn continues along your 6th house, moving retrograde, Mars is going to come into a beautiful sextile with it early in the month, July 2nd to the 7th, which is going to give you a boost of energy that you can apply to your work. That's going to have you showing up as more bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and apt at your work. So that's going to be a real bright spot. Ceres is retrograde, and Ceres is the asteroid goddess to do with finances. And this is where we get into the financial aspect of this horoscope. Ceres is retrograde, and so everybody in the world is going through a financial retrospection and introspection period, which is challenging, and it does have a tendency to reveal some flaws in your financial practices, maybe your bookkeeping, maybe how you budget. And so that sort of stuff is really going to come to light and be more visible during the new moon in Cancer that is happening on July 5th. Now, Ceres is retrograde in your 4th house, so you may find that the financial entanglements that you're dealing with and that you're trying to sort through have more to do with your domestic situation. Maybe it has to do with your mortgage payments. Maybe it has to do with your domestic finances that you share with your spouse or cohabitant. Maybe it has to do with paying the rent. But there will be a bright light shone upon it when the sun comes opposite to Ceres on July 5th, and that happens during a new moon in Cancer in your 10th house. So there could be some high emotions about this, and also you'll see that it connects to your career as well. So there's a sort of a crossed theme here of career and home and finances all converging in July 5th. So, Mars, which is a traditional ruler of your 2nd house of money, making you perhaps a little bit prone to be a little bit impulsive about how you spend your money at times, especially when something trips, your fancy and grabs your whimsy. You may find that you want to spend money on it. And Mars, is responsible for that behavior if you feel that that's true. But that Mars, ruler of your second house and your spending abilities, is traveling through your eighth house. And this is actually great news because this may have you apply your money to debt and work to pay down debt and do so very persistently in the first 2/3 of the month. And that could have you in a much better and stronger financial position by the time the month comes to an end. On July 21st, there's going to be a full moon in Capricorn in your fourth house. And that could bring some strong emotions to your domestic life. And the sun will be traveling through the 10th house until July 22nd and will come into opposition with that moon on July 21st. And that's basically the sun finishing out your 10th house, which is to say that having your attention on your career and being as shiny as possible in your career is a really great thing to do during the first 2/3 of the month. When the sun moves on into the 11th house, then you're going to find yourself bringing your attention to networking in your career. And that's a really good place to have it at that time. But that takes us into the relationship department, which is really Julia's department today. Hey, Julia, what's the news about that active 11th house this month for all the Libras?
Yeah, well, Libra, the 11th house is a house of friends. It's a house of networks, and you're getting so much planetary activity in there. On July 2nd, Mercury, the planet of communication, moves there. So you might be getting more calls, more meetings, more emails and texts from your friends or your networks. Anytime you see yourself in a group of people, that is the 11th house. Then on July 11th, Venus moves in there. She's the planet of love. And this can mean that you benefit from your friends in some way, or they benefit from you, that you have a lot of pleasure spending time with your friends. If you're single, this could be a good time to ask your friends to set you up, for example. Then we're also having the sun enter your 11th house. So your real focus this month will be on your networks. And maybe your networks can not only help you in relationships, but in other areas of your life, like career too. Use your relationships for your best advantage. And you also have the North Node in your 7th house. This is all year. The nodal axis is straddling your 1st and 7th house. Those are the houses of self and relationship. And we've already had some big eclipses here, wherever the nodes are, or where the eclipses are going to be. So there could be some big changes happening in your relationship to yourself, as well as your relationships in general. 7th house relationships, which are romantic relationships, business partnerships, also going on for you throughout this year. Now, Mars, the planet of action and activity, enters your 8th house until July 20th. So you'll be driven to gain more intimacy in your relationships. That's really what the 8th house can all be about. Mars in the 8th house can definitely be a rather amorous transit as well, wanting to, consecrate, maybe make your relationship a lot more physical this month. And then finally, I'll also mention that Chiron stations retrograde in your 7th. He's been in your 7th for a few years because he takes a lot of time transiting that sign of Aries. So old wounds, stuff that's coming up from your very early life or your childhood, may be impacting how you're seeing relationships during this station. But this is also the time to address them. It's also the time to heal them too.
Find our site at pandoraastrology.com to get a reading with one of us, and find us on Patreon for workshops and classes. And we'll see you around the cosmos.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.